Hi, my name is Jesse, a Trash Panda, and to start off the new year, we have some pretty exciting news. If you've been keeping tabs on the list of PDGA approved discs or on our Instagram, then you might already know that we recently had our third disc approved. But just saying it like that makes it sound way too simple, and especially this time, there were some pretty significant lessons we learned the hard way. So in this video, I want to pull back the curtain and share the 3 lessons we learned in approving our third disc. So it all started at the design process. And there are 100 different ways you could go about designing a disc. Honestly, it's quite interesting because it's 3D. You're doing it on a computer and you think it'll feel like one thing, but who knows? At this point, we've already learned that a 3D printer can only get us so far. First of all, 3D printed discs do not reflect the flight of the actual end product that's injection molded. And secondly, because of the way it prints on a 3D printing bed, it doesn't necessarily give us the exact feel because really gravity's working against it. So for us, 3D printing is really just a rough first step to see how the disc feels in the hand. And actually this time around, we realized that we could 3D print more like pie slices instead of the full disc, which helped us get a way better feel while also being able to see the profile. From there, our R&D guy has been hard at work building computational fluid dynamics software so that we can input the disc and see, really get a taste for how it will fly in the real world. Basically, the software is like a wind tunnel in a computer that kind of analyzes how a disc will move or interact with the air. But according to our head of R&D, get this. For each design we run through the software, it gets simulated at 11 different nose angles. Each nose angle is run through around 2,000 to 5,000 loops until the data reaches convergence, which adds up to 22,000 to 55,000 iterations. Each simulation uses a mesh that is over 20 million points large, takes roughly between 19 to 40 hours, and creates somewhere around 100 gigs of data. At the end of the simulation, we get 3 coefficients for each nose angle, or 33 numbers that help us plot predicted paths. It honestly breaks my mind every time I try to actually think about it, and I feel like we still have so much left to learn. And in the process of designing our fairway, we actually designed 8 different fairways that went through this software. So the main thing we were able to do this time around, which was super cool, was to use the software to make certain tweaks in design and validate whether those tweaks we made actually affected the flight or the predicted flight in the way we thought they would. But as we were designing our fairway, we also learned another crucial lesson that really needs to be addressed during the design phase. The calculation as to how much a disc will weigh is actually relatively simple. All you have to do is combine the volume of the mold with the density of the plastic, and that gives you your weight. So for very round numbers, if you wanted a 170 gram disc and you had a mold that was 170 centimeter cubed cavity, you'd want a density of 1. Whereas if the volume of the mold was like 140 centimeters cubed, then you'd want a density of, I will put math on the screen here. And this is great. Honestly, when it comes to the disc making process, it's nice to have something that's relatively simple. However, since we make our discs out of 100% recycled plastic, what ultimately happens is we don't necessarily know exactly what the density of the material is going to be. And even if we did know the density of the material we have on hand, it doesn't necessarily mean it's what we'll have in the future. And because it's recycled plastic, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's accurate or that it won't change throughout the process. For example, you might be familiar with our salmon dune. This run specifically came out around 172 to 173 grams, but at different points throughout the process, it also bumped up to above max weight. Or you might be familiar with the inner core in inner core blue, which is commonly a 160 class disc. But again, occasionally throughout the process, things happen. And if that doesn't express the joys of recycled plastic enough, we tested a material recently that we were told would be a very specific density that would ultimately come out to about 174 to 175 grams in the dune mold. But of course, that would be way too easy. By the way, since this is a problem that we more commonly run into, we decided, why not throw a little not PDGA approved stamp on there, make it super clear, and make these available to the 99.9% of you who don't play in sanctioned defense. So we still have a question to answer. When it comes to the design of our fairway, what should the volume be? The decision we made at this point is to make the inner core, the dune, and our new fairway a range of volumes so that different batches of recycled plastics at different specific gravities could work in different molds. And at this point, I know we still have so much left to learn, but I feel great about that solution because a material that comes in and makes an overweight 186 gram dune might just happen to make the perfect 172 gram inner core. And speaking of our new ice inner core, this disc actually leads us straight into the next lesson that we learned. But first, if you didn't already know, we recently released a new inner core in a color we call ice. And it's like the weather heard we were releasing this disc because immediately after we did, it snowed and it has been like freezing temps ever since. In my opinion, this disc feels absolutely fantastic in the hand and is actually our most stable run of inner core yet. And watch this, yep, fade at the end. Seeing an inner core fade is something I'm not used to. So if you couldn't tell, the new ice inner core might just be my favorite yet, but that's not what we're here to talk about. The interesting thing about this disc is not only is it a premium 100% recycled TPU plastic, and not only is the density of the material 1.24, but the flexibility or the durometer is a 95 Shore A. And if we connect the dots, what is insane about that is those specs are the exact same as the OG inner core blue. Yet somehow, even the exact same plastic, at the exact same weight, at the exact same flexibility, somehow flies differently. It honestly could be a plastics thing, it could be a processing thing. The truth is, we're not exactly sure. Which leads us to the lesson behind all of the other lessons. And that's that with every lesson learned, it feels like we're constantly being taught how much we still have yet to learn, which ultimately is a topic for our next video. But for now, sometimes you just have to jump. So we jumped. And I am so stoked to officially introduce you to the Trash Panda Ozone. And since you're watching, here's a little bit of a sneak peek overload. First, the story behind Ozone is one of hope. Second, sustainable starter sets are coming. Third, we could not be more stoked about this being our third disc. Fourth, if you want to know everything that happens from now until the release, get first dibs, and even possibly become one of our prototype testers, you can check out our Patreon. And here is how the Ozone, well, at least this Ozone, if we've learned anything, flies. Ooh. It's so easy. It's so easy. Ah, I love that disc and I cannot wait for you to try it. The Ozone is coming spring 2024. I know it's gonna be a minute still, but don't worry, we have something absolutely massive coming in the meantime. So subscribe, because our next video is gonna be huge. On that truck is literally the most exciting thing we've ever done, and also the most nerve-wracking thing we've ever done. And I'm literally standing here looking at what will become some of, if not the biggest problems we've ever faced. And for some reason, in this moment right now, I'm just excited.